The erosion of the divine. For centuries, the bedrock of international relations was a divine script. From the Holy Roman Empire to the Islamic Caliphates, power was a spiritual inheritance, and diplomacy was the negotiation of God's will on earth. But as we stand in February 2026, the seismic shift from divine mandate to secular ideology is complete. The foundational religious narratives that once dictated the borders of empires and the ethics of war have lost their absolute grip. In their place, a new socio-political literature has emerged, a sprawling, complex narrative that frames global affairs not as a spiritual struggle, but as a contest of competing isms: liberalism, realism, and technocratic globalism. The rise of narrative diplomacy. This transition has replaced the priest with a policy analyst and the scripture with a white paper. Contemporary power structures are no longer justified through spiritual doctrine alone. They are built on the global imaginary, a shared vision of the world shaped by economic forces and secular social sciences. In today's diplomatic arenas, the struggle is not for the soul, but for the story. We have entered the era of narrative diplomacy, where international communication is a contest of competitive credibility. It is no longer about whose army wins or whose god is greater, but about whose story wins. The literature of sociology, psychology, and economics now provides the moral vocabulary for everything from trade sanctions to humanitarian interventions. The secular-religious nexus. Yet, this shift is not a clean break. As of 2026, we are witnessing a post-secular resurgence where religious discourse is being repurposed as a socio-political tool. Leaders now use religious metaphors not as divine commands, but as cultural anchors to mobilize national identity and resist deglobalization. This is the new ethical soundscape of global affairs. Spiritual archetypes of martyrdom, justice, and community are being woven into the fabric of anti-imperialist critiques and digital boycott campaigns. The narrative has become the ultimate structural force. It is the prism through which we define what is realistic, what is acceptable, and what is just in a hyper-connected world. The new global stage. As we look toward the future of global governance, the lesson is clear. Contemporary power is narrative power. The transition from sacred texts to socio-political literature has transformed the world stage into a complex web of imagined communities and networked societies. Nations that master this modern literature, those that can, define the global narrative on climate, AI, and human rights, are the new architects of the international order. We have moved from a world governed by the science of God to a world governed by the science of the story, where the strongest alliances are forged through shared narratives rather than shared faiths.